Hello, and welcome to the Gamers Reality Podcast, based off the gamers-reality.com website and ℼ𝕠𝕚 Gamers Reality YouTube channel. We're here to talk about all things gaming. I am your host, Kevin ℼ𝕠𝕚. Here's an interesting question. How do you get world's first in Destiny raids? Is there a science to it? Can you truly break down what needs done to significantly increase your chances of getting world's first? The answer? Yes. Yes, you can. Hey everyone, what's up? Kevin ℼ𝕠𝕚 here on ℼ𝕠𝕚 Games, and welcome to Gamers Reality. I guess you could say this is a game thesis or game theory episode. If you're watching this video, it's because you're interested or at least curious on how to get world's first, or wanting to at least be close to getting world's first, or you just want to understand Destiny raids better so you can do them better yourself. After watching this video, you'll never think of Destiny raids the same way again, and you'll have a new perspective that will help you more quickly solve any new raid you're completing for the first time. Even old raids you'll see differently and think are easier after this. Destiny raids have a clear-cut formula to them, and to understand them, you need to understand all the elements that make up a Destiny raid. Bungie is the puzzle maker, and to truly understand the puzzle, you need to understand how they're made. There's no better way to understand these Destiny raids than identifying and creating terminology for them, which reveals all the elements that make up the raid. I'm going to go through some important terminology, and many of these terms will be new to you. Some of them you'll know, but you'll see them in a different way after this. Some viewers may not see the true value in this video, but others will see the true genius in this video. Terminology. Raids. A long series of puzzles that up to 6 players must solve together to earn rewards. The puzzles are a series of causes and effects. There are effective ways to going about creating these causes and effects, and ineffective ways of creating these causes and effects. The best example of this is the Last Wish raid. Power level. Hard mode if low power level, and easy mode with high power level. From experience, you know doing a raid above the max power level is very different than doing the raid 40 light levels below the recommended power level. Players having a higher power level gives more room for failed attempts at puzzle and reduces time to solve the puzzle. Players having a low power level, less room for failed attempts at puzzle and increases time to solve the puzzle. Armor and weapons. Offers more opportunities and creative ways to solve the puzzle. Certain weapons and armor pieces are more ideal or effective for certain puzzle scenarios. So there are multiple ways to go about solving the puzzle through the armor, weapons, and abilities, but only one correct way to do the cause and effect sequences that solves the actual puzzle. To use one example, at Riven, players typically use Whisper of the Worm, but players found all kinds of different weapons to one-phase Riven through Rat King, cluster rockets, Synthoceps with swords, and much more. Cheesing. Brute forcing the puzzle, a way of skipping puzzle mechanics or finding a way around puzzle mechanics. Completing the Riven boss puzzle in one phase with cluster rockets is an example of cheesing it, because it avoids the mechanics that the developers intended players to go through. Final stand, boss at 0 HP surprise. Further mechanics after the boss's health reaches 0 that players do not expect. When players chasing world's first got Riven's health to 0, they thought it was over. They were celebrating, and even Clan Redeem were ready to go to orbit if it weren't for a player telling them to find the chest. They went inside Riven and were able to kill the heart before a debuff killed them. Enraged. Indicates boss will use unavoidable wipe mechanics soon, usually as a result of players taking too long to solve the boss puzzle. For example, in Crota's End, in red lettering, it will announce he's enraged, and he will start to spam his Oversoul, which will wipe the fire team. Boss wipe mechanic, a move that bosses use to wipe or kill the entire fire team, where the only way to avoid it is to kill the boss in time, do enough damage to stun the boss, or to hide in a safe area, etc. During Cali and Last Wish, players must repeatedly hide in safe rooms they created by standing on the correct plates to avoid a wipe. Stun or stagger, when players do enough damage to the boss to move on to the next phase or to avoid the boss wiping them. Loot or reward. An item given to players after killing the boss or opening a chest indicates that the puzzle has been solved, and when the puzzle is solved, the player is justly rewarded. Yes, RNG is still typically involved, but if you save 5 keys in the Last Wish raid, you have a better chance of getting 1000 voices if you don't have it yet. Distractions. Enemies that are unrelated or irrelevant to the solving of the puzzle. Most enemies are meant to only distract or impede the player from solving the puzzle. In the Leviathan raid in the Castellum, when you're opening doors, you don't necessarily have to kill all the Cabal, though if you don't, you'll be hurting soon and probably die if you don't. The ones who steal the relic from the plate wouldn't be considered a distraction because those are a must-to-kill to solve the puzzle, but killing a regular red bar Cabal isn't necessary to solve it. Plates. A puzzle mechanic that is in every Destiny raid, where players or a player must stand on a circular plate that is crucial to solving the puzzle. Usually stepping on a plate has an immediate effect in the puzzle room. I could give way too many examples here, and if you played any bit of Destiny, you probably have your own example, but to use merely one example, when tossing the artifact ball around in the beginning of the Spire of Stars raid, players have to stand on a plate to charge the ball before throwing it to the next player. Different puzzle types. Boss puzzle, navigation puzzle or jump puzzle, plate puzzle, enemy puzzle, artifact item puzzle, symbol puzzle, buff and debuff puzzle. Different ways of perceiving the various puzzles in the raid and determining which type of puzzle needs solved at that moment in time. Debuff, a negative effect on the player that the player needs to get rid of, typically through a cleanse or transfer. When some debuffs get to a certain stack or multiplier, it usually results in death. Sometimes a debuff acts as a double-edged sword and also gives a buff. During the Morgeth Last Wish encounter, getting the Taken Strength times 3 results in death, and a player without any Taken Strength can cleanse a trapped player and that debuff is transferred over. If all players get the times 2, they can damage the boss. Cleanse, a method that allows the player to get rid of a harmful debuff. Sometimes other players have to cleanse another player through an artifact. Using the same example of the Morgeth encounter, players have to grab an Eye of Riven artifact to cleanse the trapped player. Buff, a beneficial effect for the players, which can result in many effects, common ones including more damage or allowing players to damage the boss. An easy example is the Callous Leviathan encounter, where each Force of Will buff enables the fire team to deal more damage for each stack they have. Artifact Item Object, a puzzle mechanic that is in every Destiny raid where players or a player must grab and hold the artifact and is crucial to solving the puzzle. Artifacts come in many forms, but commonly manifest themselves as orbs or balls. Artifacts typically involve taking it from point A to point B, where point A is grabbing it and point B can even be using it on a boss. One artifact example is at Riven's Heart, where players must take turns carrying it from point A to point B. Ascendant Realm, teleportation, different worlds, dimensions, or separate rooms. A common mechanic in Destiny raids where players are in separate realms or need to shift or are forced to shift from one reality to another. In some cases, players are just teleported to a separate room or environment, and players must quickly adapt to the new mechanic and setting. The separated players typically need to communicate from their realm to players in the other realm to solve the puzzle, as the puzzle is split into half or pieces based on the number of realms. One example of players being in separate rooms is the Gauntlet in the Leviathan raid, where a player grabs the orb and is teleported into a separate room that other players still can see. Examples of players being teleported into different realms is the Heart section of the Last Wish raid, where players are teleported one by one, and players must communicate with each other to extend the time for the Heart holder. In the Leviathan, players are teleported to an Ascendant realm with a big callus head, and 3 players choose to use the only 3 teleporters, leaving behind 3 players to communicate symbols to the other players. Symbols, different image representations that are common in Destiny 2 raids, where players must establish the language for communicating the symbols so they can easily be communicated with the raid group to solve the puzzle. Examples include the Last Wish raid at Vault, where 3 players step on plates to reveal symbols and must communicate which side their symbol is on to determine if they have a Penumbra lock or Antumbra lock. For those chasing worlds first, it took teams at least about 8 hours to understand this mechanic. Safe rooms or safe areas. Areas where players must hide to avoid instant death. Obvious examples include Kali at Last Wish, where players must hide in the safe rooms they created before they shut, or Wrath of the Machine, where players run into a room during Siva overload and shut the energy door to avoid a wipe. A subtle example is Eater of Worlds, where players hide behind a metal wall in the engine room, where it will light up with arc energy when the pistons pulse forward. Trap. When a boss traps or imprisons a player from doing anything and another player must help out that trapped player. If the other player does not help the trapped player within enough time, that player will die. One example is at Morgoth, when players with the ×2 stack of Taken Strength can randomly become trapped by the boss. Another example is the Eater of Worlds raid, where the raid boss, Argos, can fire a prism that traps players and the other players must shoot it to allow the trapped player to escape. Textual cues. Text in the bottom left corner that indicates something happening that players should understand. An example, 𝔼𝕤 at the Last Wish raid. It will eventually show 𝔼𝕤 readies her weapon, which means players should get ready to hide in safe rooms. Or at the Heart of Riven, where the text will either show the heart beats faster or the heart beats slower, based on unsuccessfully or successfully grabbing all the Taken Strength orbs to extend the time for the player holding Riven's heart. Visual cues, simple visual prompts that indicate something important that's related to solving the puzzle or in helping figuring out what to do. An obvious one in the Dark Below and Crow's End is the Oversoul, which players must shoot and destroy to avoid a wipe. More subtle ones include stagnant symbols in the Last Wish raid or Riven's eyes lighting up, indicating which ones should be shot. Audio cues, simple audio prompts that indicate something important that's related to solving the puzzle or in helping figuring out what to do. Obvious ones include the third phase of Vault, where epic music plays indicating it's the final round, or in the Vault of Glass, where oracles make a noise when they spawn, indicating how many there are for players to find and shoot. Team separation. Players start the raid together in a group of 6, and the raid will repeatedly make the team split apart, commonly in 2 groups of 3, 3 groups of 2, or 6 group of 1s. An example of 6 group of 1s is plates for 𝔼𝕤 and Last Wish. 2 groups of 3 is a jump puzzle plate challenge at the start of Eater of Worlds. This is the start of Vault, where there are 2 players on each side of 3 different rooms where one player stands on a plate to look at symbols, and another deals with adds and knights. And lastly, World's First, a title given to the fire team that completes the raid before everyone else. Other titles include World's Second and World's Third for each subsequent completion. Fire teams are in orbit the moment the raid comes out and launches the activity and race to complete it before the other for personal glory. It's also a great spectacle for viewers to watch. So, to prepare for the raid or any future raids for World's First, you're making sure you have completed bounties done and have them ready to turn in after the weekly reset, giving you instant powerful gear, such as for the Dreaming City, accepting Spider's 1 powerful bounty for next week, and getting closer to Ikora's 20 bounty limit. Even saving an exotic bounty quest would be good if possible. For instance, I have Malfeasance, who will have 100,000 Glimmer, as many legendary shards and enhancement cores as possible. Any type of infusion resources, you'll make sure you have as much as possible. You will not infuse guns or armor until Thursday night or the night before the raid, prioritizing raid guns like Sleeper, Whisper of the Worm, 𝔼𝕤𝕤's Shotgun, Thunderlord, your favorite primary, etc. Will make sure your favorite exotic armor piece like Synthoceps for the Titan, if the damage bug where Titans can do insane damage while in a Well of Radiance is still active, Luna's for the Warlock, etc., gets priority for infusion. You've made sure you grinded for every single powerful gear drop as much as possible, and when there's none left, you even grinded for prime engram drops. You made sure you have an instant summon Sparrow in case you need to use them. You're making sure you took a good 1 or 2 days off of work, 1 day off for the raid if needed, then 1 day off before the raid. You're making sure you get good sleep. You make sure you spoke to your raid team the night before and ideally did a practice raid run for powerful gear in just to get in sync. You have fresh AA batteries for your controller and extras. You have drinks and snacks with you. You've done at least 1 push-up to get pumped up. You used the restroom beforehand. If you're streaming, you have all that prepared and you're ready to hit stream 1 hour in advance. You've eaten and showered and you're dressed and ready to go. You eliminate any type of outside distractions. You've watched previous World First runs to get yourself pumped and in the mindset. It's just you, your raid team, and aiming for World's First. If not, then at least for the world's top 10. I've probably missed something, but you can't get everything and can only be so prepared. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Whatever platform you're using to listen to the podcast, feel free to subscribe and write a review. It really is a big help for everyone involved. You can check out any show notes on our website, 𝔼𝕚𝕚.com. Feel free to sign up for the free newsletter there, and you'll receive free stuff from me and be the first to know when I upload a podcast. You can also check out the podcast YouTube channel, ℼ𝕬𝕚𝕤, Gamers Reality, where I stream games, make game reviews, have game thesis episodes, video game motivation episodes, and much more. It's ℼ𝕬𝕚𝕤 just for Twitch and Mixer, and also for my Facebook page and Xbox gaming tag. You can follow me on Twitter at 𝔼𝕬𝕚𝕤. And last, if you're enjoying all the content I'm putting out there for the YouTube channel, blog, podcast, and whatnot, please consider becoming a supporter by becoming a patron at patreon.com/gamersreality. Donating just $1 a month will help cover the costs of keeping things up and running. Doing all of this certainly costs money, such as for hosting platforms, but I have a lot of fun and enjoy giving content to you guys. Simply put, your donations will allow me to make even more content for you guys. Thank you so much for being here with me and listening, and I'll see you next time. Peace.